Welcome to another edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media by first going to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you could simply search for us wherever you download your podcast. It's called War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play. Wherever you download your podcast, including that iHeartRadio app, just make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. Also, we're on the Tube, a.k.a. YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. We appreciate your support in advance, and we are also unapologetically fun.
Yes, we are. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
For those of you that are listening and watching us outside the Chicago area, as of this recording, most of the country is being hit with this major winter storm. So be careful out there. If you don't have to go anywhere, please don't. And if you do, just be careful, prepare yourself, give yourself extra time. With that being said, Lakeena, since we are broadcasting live from Chicago, let's start off with some baseball. Of course, spring training opens up this week for many teams, including our two teams here in the area, both the Cubs and the White Sox. Lakeena, let's start off with the White Sox. They are now reporting to Camelback Branch in Arizona, even as we speak. And, of course, most of the players are going down there, and they are preparing for the upcoming 2020-21 season. Lakeena, we talked about this a little bit maybe about a month ago of what do we expect from the Sox team. We won't get in too deep, but I'll ask you first, what is your number one headline going into spring training for the Southsiders?
Really, basically, has the game passed by Tony La Russa? We talked about him, months ago when he first got the job and got rehired, I should say, with the White Sox. We all had different names in mind. He hasn't managed in a long time. Look, we know he's been successful. He's won multiple World Series and this and that. Can he connect with today's players? That's really the one thing that I'm worried about if I'm a Sox fan. It looks like Michael Kopech will be back with the White Sox. There was some news that came out about that over the weekend. But, the rotation is still, they've got a great rotation, but they could probably use a middle relief guy or two. They're pretty much, they're set on the bad side, they're all set. I mean, I think, look, you can always use another hitter, right? So a veteran hitter. So we'll see if they're going to spend any money, because there have been some reports saying that they're done spending money. But I want to see how this team will look. There's some change, but most of the core of the team is still pretty much the same. So I'm wondering, are we going to see the productivity? Because sometimes you can go through slumps, sometimes you can, be even better than you were last year. So I think White Sox fans should be really excited, as they should be, but I think they should kind of take it bad a bit, because baseball weird things happen in baseball. All right, you and I know this pretty well. So
yeah.
And so I think that look, I'm expecting good things for the White Sox, but again, you still got a couple of teams in your division that's still going to compete. So we'll see what happens. What about you?
The number one storyline for me is the starting rotation, perhaps two spots, the fourth and the fifth rotation spot. You're set as far as Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn, who they traded for this offseason in exchange for Dane Dunning, and Dallas Keuchel, who was finally brought here as a free agent before the start of last season. Those are your top three. Your fourth and fifth spots, you have about 4 or 5 guys battling for that spot. Dylan Cease, as you mentioned before, Michael Kopech, which I'll get into in just a second. Also, you'll have Ronaldo Lopez, who I've been iffy on for the last few years. So you have about 3 or 4 guys battling for that fourth and fifth spot. I think it's safe to say that Dylan Cease will be their fourth guy, but I'm not sure about that yet. also, but that fifth spot is going to be competition. Of course, Kopech, Carlos Rodon, and Ronaldo Lopez. You know, Lakeena, when we were doing our radio show back in the studio last year before the shutdown, I said, Ronaldo Lopez, if you get something out of him, you can trade him to get you that piece that you need to get you over the top. I still feel that way now. Let's just say that Lopez doesn't start off the year as a fifth guy in the starting rotation. You can use him as your not middle relief, but your long relief, whether your team is up 8 runs or down 8 runs. You can use a pitcher like him to eat up innings. Let's be honest here, Lakeena. He does have the stuff to be a starter. I was at a couple of his games where he struck out double-digit batters. But his problem is when things don't go his way, it's all mental. I'm very careful when I'm saying this, but he lets the little things get into his head, and he doesn't know how to overcome them as quickly as other players do. So that's the problem they have with Lopez. Now with Michael Kopech, he hasn't pitched in 2 years, and this may be the right side of my brain coming out, Lakeena, but I don't want to hear any excuses for the White Sox. Well, he didn't do this. He couldn't do that. We don't send him down to the minors, even though the minor leagues this year don't start till May. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And we'll talk about La Russa's impact in just a moment. But I think with Tony La Russa coming in here, the slate is wiped clean. Everybody gets a fair chance to earn their spot. If you don't earn it, that's on you, barring injuries, no one else. So this is good for Michael Kopech. I don't want the White Sox. I don't want to hear anything from the White Sox upper management giving excuses of why Kopech, if he didn't earn his spot. Everything is a goal right now. The slate is wiped clean. The team has said this is our opportunity to win the World Series this year. Let's go for it, and let's take no prisoners.
Well, I'm also fascinated on what they're going to do with Rodon because they tried the relief experiments, late last season into the playoffs. It was a total disaster. Do you put him
Thank you, Ricky Renteria.
Yeah. Do you put him in that back end of that rotation? Do you put him probably have as like sort of like a 6 starter, sort of like a guy that just eats up innings? But that's kind of why you got Lance Lynn for, is to sort of be that guy. So it'll be interesting to see where does Rodon fit in the rotation. Now, as for on the hitting side, I mean, like I just said, unless everybody goes like a slump all at the same time, there should be a lot of runs scored with the White Sox this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, Abreu, fresh off his AL MVP and very deserving, led the league in a lot of the batting categories last year. Yes, he's older now, but you still expect a lot from him. Eloy, I mean, is he going to be a DH? I know that's why he brought in Eaton, but is Jimenez going to be more of a DH guy? Robert, how he's going to look. He kind of had a rough start last year. Tim Anderson, you hope he can kind of keep up his pace. Moncada too. So I'm very interested to see on the batting side for the White Sox, how they look, because they're one of the top scoring teams in the league last year. So I'm kind of interested to see I'm kind of to see how they do, especially will they be even better or will they take a couple of steps back? You just don't know. Baseball, like I said, baseball is very iffy when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'm cautiously excited. I think you should be cautiously excited if you're a White Sox fan.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown as we talk about the Chicago White Sox. Lakeena, let's go back to Carlos Rodon. He has a leg up because he's been in the rotation ever since he was brought up here a few years ago. He does have the experience, but my problem with him is it takes him 4.5 innings, sometimes 5 innings to go through 100 pitches, and that you just cannot do that, especially in today's game, even though it's so specialized now more than ever. So yeah, that's the problem I have with Rodon. If he can keep his pitch count down, plus extend himself to 5 or 6 innings and then not throw 100 pitches, he'll be fine. So he's my leader in the clubhouse as far as earning that 5th spot in the rotation. Now, as far as hitting is concerned, Lakeena, I talked about Eloy Jimenez. Last year we brought on a few guests, and I said Eloy Jimenez, I think, will be the eventual DH for this team going forward. But I haven't heard that buzz too much about it going into as the players head into spring training. Well, we'll see how short or how long is the leash for Tony La Russa, giving Eloy Jimenez a chance to improve himself out there in left field. Now, Eloy Jimenez is the quote-unquote leader, I guess, in the clubhouse for the DH role, but you look at guys as Jose Abreu, who's your first baseman. You know he's going to get a few games at DH for this upcoming season. Andrew Vaughn, who you drafted a couple of years ago, I thought was going to eventually replace Jose Abreu last year. Of course, Jose was brought back on a 2 or 3 year deal. And if Andrew Vaughn doesn't break camp, who's going to be your DH? Will it be Yasmani Grandal? But he's your number one catcher. Will it be Zach Collins? So the White Sox do have a little bit of time, but not as much time as people think to figure out who's going to be their DH permanently for the season. Will La Russa play it as a matchup role as far as who's the starting pitcher for that day is doing a combinations that way. But they got to find out very soon who's going to be their permanent DH for this upcoming season.
And I think that's what Luz is going to do. I mean, he's probably going to try different combinations of guys to see, okay, who fits better, on the DH spot. Like you said, Sid, will he do more of a matchup, lefty versus lefty, righty versus righty, switch positions, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, they're all the names you mentioned, I think will probably be would all be really good choices for DH, but I think like we've been saying, I think La Russa, he was still around the game, he wasn't managing. I'm sure he I'm sure he's seen the sabermetrics and stuff like that. So I'm sure he's probably going to play more matchups related. So he might give each guy probably like a series or something like that to see how they do. But I think you want to have that consistent DH. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Now let's go back to the pitching rotation. And now with the bullpen, you have some interesting arms that could compete for some spots this year. Closer Liam Hendriks, who was a free agent that was signed away from Oakland. That was a good signing, I believe, for the White Sox. Of course, Hendriks was the best closer in in Major League Baseball the past couple of years. But check out some of these names, and I think they will have a big impact this year. Aaron Bummer, who's their fine left-hander out of the bullpen. He was injured half of last year. I expect him to have a good year this year. Zach Birdie, he looked okay in certain spots, but you could tell a hometown guy, he wasn't quite ready to take on that throne just yet. You have Garrett Crockett, who came on at the end of last year. You saw him a couple of times during the playoff series against Oakland. He's expected to have a good year. Matt Foster as well. And you have Jace Fry. So Tony La Russa has some options in that bullpen. And I know Alex Colomé, who I thought they should have kept, but, you go out and sign Liam Hendriks, and Alex Colomé's days were over as far as the White Sox are concerned. Now he's signed with the Minnesota Twins. Looking at this bullpen, also you have Evan Marshall as well, who didn't do too bad last year, and you look at Jimmy Lambert as well, who's been invited to camp. Lakeena, as far as these names I just read off to you and to our audience, the White Sox, at least on paper, looks like they have the best bullpen, if not in the American League, in all of baseball.
I think they're right there in the team picture. I think they're right there in the team picture for best, sort of, closing rotation, I guess. And, look, Birdie, I've always liked. I mean, Downers Grove kid. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see where he fits. Is he going to be like that backhand guy, before Hendricks gets there, to close, games out? We'll see. And like you said before, I think, Marshall had some injuries last year, so that we didn't really see too much of him, but, I'm sure he'll have his chance. Also Matt Foster too. So I'm kind of interested, and the good news is for La Russa is that he does have options. So I'm sure he'll probably, switch guys around, rotate guys, from the closers and stuff like that. So, and middle relievers too. So I think that, the crop is there for him. So I'm sure, whoever will get, the sort of like the top middle reliever spot, if you will, we'll see where he goes with that.
Now, going back to the infield, of course, Tim Anderson, who's the AL batting champ from 2019, he improved last year. I expect more things from him this year. I know he's on the cover of a video game, and his defense slightly improved last year, but it could be better. I know that recently he was on a podcast with Chuck Garfien. He was upset that he was ranked the number 10th shortstop in the American League, I believe, and he was very ticked off. As we talked about before, Lakeena, he's the face of the team in terms of the swag and the attitude and the emotional leader both on and off the field. He sets an example for the rest of the guys. He may not be their best player, but in terms of the attitude and what the team needs, he's that guy. So I like his attitude coming into the season. He always seems to be that guy that turns a negative into a positive.
You gotta love his passion, right? I mean, this is a
Mm-hmm.
guy. What you see is what you get with Anderson. You hear him in interviews, with various TV and radio stations here in Chicago. This guy's very genuine. He's also a very confident guy too. I mean, look, he'll let you know what he thinks. He's very transparent. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see how he does. I mean, his defense still needs a little bit of work, and he'll be the first to tell you that. But I think he definitely will have his shot this year, especially under La Russa, especially under the staff that's going to be with him. So I'm not worried about Tim Anderson at all. Unless again, I'm knocking on the wood again. Injuries sort of detail him. I think he could probably maybe make a case for MVP if he has the numbers to back it up. And, Abreu, we'll see if he can go back to back. I know some people are a little concerned since he's over 30 now. He's 34. He just turned 34 about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But look, as long as he's still been very productive, so hopefully he can keep that production up. Moncada, I know how you feel about your Moncada, Sid, but I think he can definitely, if he could kind of keep up the pace. He got a little bit better last year. So, but I think the depth of this White Sox infield. I mean, you got Gavin Sheets. We'll see how he looks. He's their young infielder. Mendrick, Danny Mendrick is another guy. Nick Madrigal is another guy. So, you got a little bit of youth plus some experience too with Abreu. So I think that the infield looks really good for the White Sox.
Yeah, and then Madrigal will be playing his first full season as a White Sox second baseman if everything holds up. He had an impact in the lineup last year, especially on the field a little bit shaky, but that's what you expect from a rookie. But I expect him to have a bounce back year in his first full season in the White Sox uniform. The problem is going to be the depth of the infield. I know Danny Minnick is supposed to be the backup second baseman / shortstop. We'll see what Tony La Russa does with that. Jose Abreu, I expect him to be professional as usual. Will he have the same numbers as he did last year? Who knows? But I think he's still going to be productive. Now, at third base with Yohan Moncada, remember, before the season started last year, he was one of the two players that caught COVID early in their summer camp before they restarted the season last year. So I expect a big year from him. Now, will he be an all-star or perhaps a candidate for AL MVP? I'm not sure. We'll see how strong how fast if he gets off to a hot start. And Tim Anderson, will this be the first time he'll finally get a bid to an all-star game? It should be fun.
A lot of fun indeed. Let's go to the outfields for a second. Sid, Adam Eaton, probably the big story there. Adam Eaton is back with the White Sox. I know you were. I know you were surprised. We talked about it offline. I know you were surprised. So was I. We'll see if he has anything left in the right field, but I'm still a little leery about that. Some other stuff, but we won't get into that. That's another episode for another episode of the podcast. But we'll see how he does. He's still got stuff left in him. Adam Engel made some has some really clutch hits for the White Sox last year. So I'm dying to see how he looks. Leury Garcia, consistent, could be a little bit better. He's 29 years old now. We talked about Eloy. I mean, as long as Eloy does his thing, I mean, especially as long as he stays away from the outfield. I'm hoping that La Russa does not.
Don't get caught up in the net.
I know, don't go all that netting up. But Luis Robert, I should say. I keep, sorry, Luis, I keep messing up your last name, but I'm dying to see how if he keep it up. He got hot late, so it got a little cold too in the playoffs. So I'm sure, I'm hoping for a big year for him. So the outfields look really good for the White Sox. I have to say the depth there is definitely really good.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about them is their defense. Of course, Luis Robert, he can cover almost all areas out there in that outfield. But as I mentioned before, we talked about it last year. Eloy Jimenez, I don't need him to be a Gold Glove candidate. It'll be nice, but if he can just be average, I'm okay with that. Now, in right field with Adam Eaton, I don't know how many games he's going to play. I think it will all depend on the matchups, as you brought up earlier, Lakeena, with the lineup. I think it will be between him and Adam Engel. You may have to platoon those two off and on throughout the season. We'll see how things go here in spring training. But the right field will be my attention seeker of what La Russa does.
Yeah, I'm dying to see what he does with that. Will Eloy be in the right field? Oh Jesus! I'm sure Adam Eaton's probably get some days off, so we'll see. I mean, I don't know. That's the one thing I'm a little concerned about when it comes to the fact that they don't have a lot of depth in the right field. But that I'm sure La Russa knows what he's doing, so we'll see what he does there. A little bit of media stuff there with the White Sox, of course. The radio side of the White Sox, it'll now be on ESPN 1000, where Len Kasper, who did 60 years, doing Cubs television through, Comcast, NBC Sports, Chicago, now Marquee did a year there. He moves over to the radio side with DJ and Connor McKnight's going to be doing pre and post on ESPN 1000. Of course, the TV guys will be the same. Jason Benetti and Steve Stone. A great team. Leading a great team. So I'm excited. I mean, they just announced the White Sox just announced their schedule for spring training. A lot of the games will be on ESPN Chicago. So you'll have your chance to listen to it on the radio. Also, of course, all the games will be on NBC Sports Chicago. So you'll definitely have some places to look for if you're a White Sox fan, and it's good to see them getting some attention because they're going to be having a lot of games also on ESPN on television. So.
Yeah, speaking of NBC Sports Chicago, real quick, Lakeena, I was listening to another program over the weekend. I'm interested to see how many spring training games that the White Sox will have on NBC Sports Chicago. Of course, they're now the exclusive home. NBC Sports Chicago is the exclusive home for the White Sox now. But how many spring training games will they air? Because you still have commitments to not only the Bulls, not only the Blackhawks, but the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, which will come up in a couple of weeks to kick off the month of March. And also, I think they may have another commitment as well. But how many spring training games will they air? Will they air 5, 6, maybe 10? Who knows? But I'm really interested to see how many spring training games will they air, because they start spring training on February 28th against the Milwaukee Brewers. So I know the schedule should be out within the next few days or so. Hopefully we'll have news on our next podcast. But I wonder how many spring training games will NBC Sports Chicago air for the White Sox? Will it be double digits? Will it be 5, 6? Yeah, because there's interest higher in this team right now than it has been in the last perhaps decade. To be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what I'm wondering too. I mean, I'm kind of like, what are they going to do? Because like you said, they have other commitments through not just the teams you mentioned, but also I think there are a couple other conference tournaments that I think that they're committed to broadcasting. So of course, with everything else being, in limbo or were pushed back, they've named their commitments. So there's going to be a lot of interest. I mean, the good news is that they also have a Plus network, NBC Sports Chicago Plus, which is available in a lot of, if you have NBC Sports Chicago, you'll get NBC Sports Chicago Plus. So you just basically got to look for your satellite provider, their guide, and see what you're going to be able to do or how you're going to be able to watch the White Sox games.
And also regarding the fans, for those of you that usually travel to Arizona to watch spring training, you will be able to do so this year. But the Whites, I don't know about the whole Cactus League. I don't know about the Cubs league that they're in. We'll get to the Cubs in just a second. But for the White Sox, you can watch the White Sox in Arizona this year, but there will be a 25% capacity. Only 2,400 fans will be allowed for fans to watch a White Sox spring training. Lakeena, this will bring up the question. I'll kind of kick it off now. April 1st is the opening day for the Chicago Cubs, I believe, against Pittsburgh. I know the White Sox are a week later, April 8th, against the Kansas City Royals. Unless something catastrophic happens, both opening day will happen around the country. But I'm focusing on Chicago. My question is to you right now on February 15th, as of this recording, do you think they will have fans at either stadium for opening day? I think it's safe to say whenever fans are allowed back, it'll be slowly as far as capacity is concerned. I think it's safe to say that. But do you think, because for people that are watching and listening outside the Chicago area, both the Cubs and the Sox play within the city limits. They do not play in the suburbs. So that brings on the question of Chicago Mayor Miss Lori Lightfoot and Governor J.B. Pritzker. On opening day, I'll ask you this first question. Do you think there'll be fans in both our stadiums on opening day, the Cubs April 1st and the White Sox on April 8th against the Royals?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
There's still
For both teams?
Yeah, I don't think neither
Okay.
team will have fans, at least not right now, because there's still too much. I guess people are getting vaccinated, which is great, but you still got various variants still running around. I think our mayor and Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot as well, will probably want to keep it slowly. So yes, well, we don't really know how many people will be vaccinated by then. Maybe they'll keep it limited, but I think if you're asking me, like right now, February 15th, 2021, I don't think it's happening. Not right now. Now maybe later in the summer, maybe by August or September for the stretch run, maybe they'll gradually get fans in, but right now I don't see it happening.
I know that the White Sox want to make money, and all these teams will want to make money because there were no fans in the stands last year. I do agree with you. Right, if we have to take the bet right now, I will say no. But I think by May and June, you'll see a small capacity in both stadiums. Of course, we don't want to get into too much deep into politics on this podcast. There's some stuff that they'll get our heads spinning. We won't go deep into that. But at this point, I'll just say this. At this point, I don't think it's about COVID anymore. It's about economics. And I'll just leave you with this. Do you, if you're Mayor Lori Lightfoot, do you, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, do you want to see downtown Chicago, especially in the summertime? I'm sure we'll be better off then than we are now. But do you want to see your city and your state go ghost town and not much money coming in for the second year in a row in the summer? I don't think so.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there. So let's go up north to the Cubs. Now they, sort of a big surprise, somewhat a surprise on Friday night. The news came out that Jake Arrieta will, coming back, to the Cubs. Get a little bit of the band back together, which begs the question: what the heck are they doing? Does Jed Hoyer seem to think that the Cubs still have a chance to perhaps maybe compete in the division? I guess. I don't know. I mean, you've got the little mixture of guys. You got rid of Yu Darvish. You still you still don't know the future of Chris Bryant. Will he still be a Cub or not? You got Contreras, of course. You got Javi Baez. We talked about Chris Bryant. Ian Happ, Jason Hayward. You got Jock Pederson, who the White Sox should have had, but apparently he took less money to come to the Cubs. But
$7 million.
yeah. But the White Sox offered 10, so I don't know what happened there, but you got your mix of young guys. You got Alec Mills, and guys like that. So if you're a Cubs fan, you're wondering like, what the heck is going on here? Are we competing? Are we rebuilding? Are we kind of doing it halfway?
You know what? Let's go with Arrieta since we didn't get a chance to talk about it on our last episode. He signs here for $6 million. Congrats to him. Whatever you get out of him at this point, Lakeena, is gravy. Because remember, when he left here a couple of years ago, he started to break down. Of course, he was the best pitcher in baseball for about a year and a half, from the second half of 2015 until 2016 when they won the World Series. And then he started breaking down afterwards. He wasn't as good because all those innings that he pitched, he threw a couple no-hitters during his first go-around as a Cub. But if you're Jed Hoyer and you're Tom Brickett's the owner, of course, I bring up Arrieta's contract because you didn't have $5 million for John Lester, but you found $6 million for Arrieta, who is now broken down at this point. And you found $7 million for Jock Pederson. Are you really poor? Or if you just wanted to say that you didn't want John Lester around anymore, I get it. But you say because it was economics, I'm not buying that. You gave $6 million to Arrieta, and you gave $7 million to Jock Pederson. That sounds like you found some money somewhere, or just say you didn't want John Lester, but just say that you're crying poor, but you found a way, and using air quotes here, to give money to those two veterans, especially Arrieta as an aging veteran. You know what you're going to get out of a full season for him at this point in his career. I find it hypocritical to me.
I mean, I'm sure Cubs fans are probably asking that same question. I'm sure you're wondering, like, okay, you're crying poor, but yeah, you found this money for two veteran guys, one coming off a World Series who still post, pretty good numbers, one guy who you had on the team, help you win the World Series, but yet, has struggled in the last few years and broken down, but yet you gave him some money. So it is sort of weird that was the case for the Cubs. You cry poor, but yet you found this money. Who knows who knows what they're doing at this point with the finances. I mean, you can cry poor all you want, but yet you're spending not massive amounts of money, but you're spending money. So what's the deal here? But I think if you're a Cubs fan, you're sort of wondering, like, okay, what's going on, team wise? I mean, Kyle Hendricks is probably going to be the guy. He'll probably be the top rotation guy. Like I talked about Alec Mills, we'll see how he looks, and who else. I mean, the starting rotation is still pretty much, wide open for those last few spots. Now, as far as, catching, you got Contreras, of course. You got, Miguel Amaya, a young catcher. We'll see if he becomes a big part of the main roster. Of course, we all know in the infield you got Baez, Bodie, KB. Okay, well, okay, I'll let you piggyback off the pitching part first.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the starting rotation is going to be in question all year, Lakeena. You better hope that Kyle Hendricks does not get hurt at any period of time, because if he does, there's going to be trouble. As I mentioned, Arrieta, he's already injury prone at his age at this point of his career. I know Zach Davies is slated to be third. Alec Mills follows him in the fourth spot, and Adbert Alzolay, who's shown signs in his couple of years as a stint as the Chicago Cubs. He's slated to be the fifth starter as of now. I'm interested to see that fifth spot in the rotation. Who's going to fill that role? Because we all know in the game of baseball, you need 5 strong starters, basically 3, but that fourth and fifth spot, even though it may not be as important right now, but it's going to come in handy, especially if your top guys get hurt. So I'm interested to see, again, who's going to be their fifth starter for the Cubs. Now, as far as their bullpens were concerned, we talked about it last year, Lakeena. Their bullpen was not up to par. Of course, Craig Kimbrough struggled during his first go-around. The first half of last year, he actually lost his closest spot. Warren Wick is slated to be the backup closer behind him. Now, as far as the other parts of the bullpen concerned, Kyle Ryan is slated to be in there. Jason Adams, Dwayne Underwood Jr., Andrew Chaffin, and Dan Winkler. These are some of the no-name guys that Cub fans are going to have to get used to. So I'm interested to see more, not so much the closer role, even though that's important too, but who's going to fill those spots with the setup guy and the middle relief guys for the Cubs? Well, that was a big-time struggle for them last year.
And also, like you said, I think all those guys you mentioned are in their early 20s. So this is probably going to be something that, like you said, Cubs fans got to get used to. Keaton Thompson will have his shot to get a spot. Corey Abbott too. So these are the names that that Cubs fans, like you said, are going to have to get used to, and they'll probably be vying for the back end rotation as well as the middle relievers. So this could be something that the Cubs fans got to get used to for a bit.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to get used to, and we shall see how it all shapes out as spring training begins this week for the guys on the north side. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Browns. We now talk about the Chicago Cubs. Lakeena, let's go into the outfield. Of course, slated to start in right field is Jason Hayward, center field Ian Happ, and in left field, Jock Pederson. We are assuming that Chris Bryant's on this roster, Lakeena, to start opening day. I think it'll be safe to say that you'll see him in left field on some occasion, but not much. Center field, I think they've done well with Ian Happ. I know he's played infield a lot when he was brought up here a couple of years ago, but I think you have something in Happ in center field. Right field, Jason Hayward, you're going to get from him. Offensively, this is where I think is going to be a problem. Defensively, I think they'll be all right, but offensively, it's going to be a challenge from those 3 outfielders I just mentioned.
Well, don't forget Philip Irvin, who they got from Cincy. So this is someone who can, who's a pretty good infielder too. He's 28 years old, and I'm thinking this is probably where he'll pick up the slack for the batting. He actually had a pretty decent average last year. I'll look up his numbers, but he's probably another guy that could be a utility guy. 149, which he didn't play that many games, so I know Cubs fans are a little bit worried about that. 481 OPS, so not too bad. So I'm thinking that he'll probably be, they got it they got it for cheap, so that's probably where that they'll pick up the slack there. I'm sure they'll probably switch. KB will probably see a lot of him in the outfield, to kind of sort of pick up the slack there unless they get somebody last minute before the season starts. So that's a pretty good outfield. You got Happ, Haywood, and Jack Pederson. I mean, that's a pretty good outfield. Their defense, they're probably one of the best in the league in their respective spots. The batting, though, like you said, Pederson, had his struggles, but kind of picked it up late for the Dodgers last year. So I'm looking forward to how they look, how that whole outfield look, and I'm sure they'll probably pick up somebody else at some point, but those are not going to be like the final outfield. I think they'll probably pick up another name or two.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Going to the infield back to the infield for just a second. Of course, slated to start at second base is Nico Horner. Javi Baez is still at shortstop. Of course, you have Anthony Rizzo at first base. I think what I'm looking at from the infield is production offensively. Anthony Rizzo looked good last year, even losing, I believe, 30 pounds before the start of last season. He really looked good, and you saw the production at the plate from him. Do you expect the same results out of him or better results this year from him offensively? And for Javi Baez, can he play at another level, perhaps challenge for that NL MVP like he did a couple of years ago?
And I think he probably wants to get back to that level. He admitted, I've heard him in interviews admit that, look, he didn't have a good year last year. And that's true. He didn't. And he'll be the first to tell you that. So I'm looking forward to see, I think, for what I've read, he has, bulked up a little bit, added a little bit of muscle. So maybe that'll help him in both the batting and in the infield. So I'm looking forward to see that. Also, Alcantara, I'm kind of, he's sort of a guy that you saw him a little bit, but, he really wasn't a factor, Sergio Alcantara. So I'm looking forward to see how he looks. David Bowie. I mean, can we get like that David Bowie that we got earlier last season? So I'm looking forward. Let's see if we can get that. So I'm thinking that those are probably going to be the names that are going to be names that I'm sure that the Cubs fans are going to be keeping an eye on.
And just to wrap up on the Cubs, Lakeena, like I said, we'll get more deep into them as spring training goes on, as we actually start to watch these guys in actual game action down there in Arizona. Looking at this roster, of course, it's filled with a bunch of young guys / no names. You have your key veterans as well, Lakeena. I think this will be a competitive team, but especially now what the Cardinals did in trading for Nolan Arenado from Colorado. On paper, they look the Cubs look terrible, to lack of a better word, compared to St. Louis or perhaps maybe Milwaukee in the division. I think they'll be competitive, but how far will they go? We just don't know.
I think that there is still an opening there in NL Central. I know that the Cardinals got Arenado, they got Chris Carpenter, to come back. But does the Cardinals team really? Other than that, do the Cardinals really scare you? I mean, do they? I don't. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I mean, the Reds. I mean, I'm sure the Reds are going to be the favorites in that division. We'll see where the Brewers are. The Pirates don't seem to know what they're doing. You thought that maybe they probably make a play for the division in the last few years, but they haven't done that. So I think the NL Central is still pretty wide open. I don't think there's really one big favorite. Now if you want to say the Reds are their favorite, yeah, but are they ready to kind of take that leap? So as long as they're competitive, I think the Cubs are. I think the fans will be satisfied.
Yeah. Also, too, Lakeena, I know I don't want to jump ahead of you, but did you have the PECOTA rate rankings for the the projection of wins for the Cubs. I know
I
when it
do.
came out for the White Sox, it was 83 wins, and people went berserk, and I just kind of rolled my eyes. I said, we'll see what happens. But did you have it for the Cubs?
I I think it's like 88. I'm not sure, but let me get those up for a second. But going to the TV and radio side for a second with the Cubs, of course, Len Kasper did it for 16 years. He's now across town with the White Sox. Now you got veteran ESPN, and also a guy that has done baseball for years. He did games for the Marlins for I think like about a decade, and I think Cubs fans will be really. And I have to say I was really happy that they got him. John Boog Sciambi will be the new voice for the Cubs, and I think, yeah, I think I didn't think that Marquee would go with someone with a big name like that, because I thought that maybe they would go with Chris Myers. I mean, no shade, no disrespect, but but I'm glad that Sciambi, Boog said he's looking forward to coming, and he's like, he can't eat pizza because he's giving up carbs and sugar, so he won't be eating any pizza. No Dietrich's pizza or thin crust pizza for him, but all he eats cauliflower pizza. I'm sure they got him in those places, but I think they got a good one for the Cubs on the TV side and the Marquee.
Yeah, you mentioned he did great work for the Marlins for all those years. Of course, I enjoyed his work on Sunday Night Baseball on the radio side for ESPN. He did plenty of television for the ESPN as well. So he's going to be very entertaining. I want to see how the chemistry is between him and Jim Deshaies. I know Deshaies and Kasper had a business-like type relationship. They had some lighthearted moments as well, but we know Boog Sciambi is a fun-loving guy. He's a very entertaining guy. So I want to see how Deshaies and him mesh together. It's going to take some time, but I want to see how those two personalities mesh together in the booth.
Yeah, you got to be serious. JD's could be like very very serious, very stoic. We all know Sciambi. If you heard him on his broadcast, he's very fun loving. He doesn't take himself too seriously, so it's gonna be interesting to see how that relationship, how they mesh. But it's gonna take some time. So I don't think, if you're a Cubs fan, I don't think you should freak out if they don't click right away. But maybe they will click right away. Who knows? He said, "Look, yeah. I love Sciambi's transparency." He said, "Look, I'm gonna say some stupid stuff. I know." He said that. He said, "Look, I'm going to say some stupid stuff." Okay. But it's what you get with him. So that's why we love him. So I'm sure.
Yeah, as long as you don't get fired, which I know he knows, he's a smart guy. As long as you don't get fired, you should be fine.
All right. So now for the projected wins. The Cubs actually have the Cubs winning 85.
If things go right, that's not a bad thing, but will it be enough to win that division, though? Like I said, we'll give out our predictions when we get closer to the season, but I think it's about right for the Cubs. Maybe it's a couple wins more than your average fan expects or predicts, but I don't think it's too bad.
I think if you're QP for one of the wild card spots, I think you should be feeling pretty good if you're a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
They actually have the Brewers winning the division at 89, and the Cardinals only with 81. Now that was actually even after the Arenado trade, so. It's good, like you said. We won't get into that. We'll get into the predictions of that in about a couple, maybe next week. I guess we'll start doing the divisional previews. But I look, like I've been saying, I think the Central is there for the taking. And then on the NL side too. I can't talk for some reason, but and the NL Central is there for the taking for the Cubs. I believe that, and I think I don't think no one's going to run away with it.
Yeah, we shall see. It's going to be very competitive. Hopefully we made you guys, especially across the country, and especially here in the Chicago area. We know it's still crappy outside, but hopefully we made you feel a little bit better talking baseball since spring training is around the corner. Lakeena, let's take this 20-second timeout. On the flip side, we'll talk about the Bulls and that terrible game against the Clippers this past Friday. They have a tough schedule, as we mentioned in our last episode. We'll review it again. Let's see if they can get back on track. We'll talk about an action-packed weekend from the rest of the association. And we'll mention about the Blackhawks as well. They had a great win on Saturday night. They have a tough road trip ahead. And also we'll get into college basketball, including two local teams that are starting to make moves as we get towards March Madness. You're listening to Second City Sports. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
I know it's crappy outside, but we'll try to make it as best entertainment and fun and informative for you as we always do. Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media by going to our website, weareregalradio.com. And on all your download podcast platforms, search for us on War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And you can find us on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. We appreciate your support as we are unapologetically fun.
And that's for sure. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends.
As we transition now to the NBA and Chicago Bulls, Lakeena. The Chicago Bulls, their record stands as of this recording at 10-15. Of course, their lone game from the weekend took place at the United Center against the Los Angeles Clippers this past Friday. The Clippers take both games from the Chicago Bulls, sweeping the series in 2021. The Clippers defeated the Bulls 125-106. Paul George did not play, but Kawhi Leonard led the Clippers with 33 points. Marcus Morris Sr., I should say, contributed with 20 points off the bench for the Clippers. For the Bulls, Zach LaVine had 26 points. Kobe White had 17. Lakeena, even though we love the scoring in the NBA these days, we all know it's about pace of play and three-point shooting and things along that nature. It still comes down to defense, and the Bulls have consistently shown that they are inconsistent on defense.
I mean,
even with dealing with the current situation of dealing with injuries.
Yeah, the good news is, I guess you could say Wendell Carter Jr. was a full participant yesterday. We'll see if he'll be able to play tonight. But look, I like I said before, I mean, they kept it close for a little bit, and then the Clippers showed you why they're the Clippers. So I'm not freaking out over a loss. They pulled away late. Kawhi, PG, they all made big shots. They're kind of to pull away from the Bulls. So I'm not too concerned. I mean, look, Zach LaVine did what he could. 26 points. Garrett Temple had 10 points in that starting lineup. Kobe White had a nice showing with 17. Satoransky actually had a good go too. With 17 points off the bench. Again, just there's a reason why the Clippers are up here. The Clippers are up here, and the Bulls are, though they're getting better. They're still kind of like a little way behind. So again, they put up that fight till the end. So I'm not freaking out like, okay, oh my God, they lost to the Clippers.
Rule of broadcasting, folks. When you're doing Zoom, unmute yourself before you talk.
Yes.
You talked about how the Bulls have shown the fight late, especially in these last few games that they trailed. My point of contention is this, and we said this on the last podcast on Friday. The Bulls need to play consistently for 48 minutes. If and when you do that, you give yourself a better chance to win ball games. Now, if they want to turn around, perhaps become a playoff team. We said this before, too, in our last episode. This is the time for the Bulls to do it. Of course, they start off on the road at Indiana. By the time this episode comes out, that game would already have been played. So they would have played the game at Indiana. Of course, on Wednesday, they traveled to Charlotte. They beat them a couple of times before this season, including the last time a few weeks ago. Of course, on Friday, they were at Philadelphia, a national televised game on ESPN, before returning home on Saturday to face the Sacramento Kings, which a game that they lost to a team that they lost to early in their West Coast road trip earlier this season. Of course, next Monday they'll go to Houston. So, Lakeena, I hate repeating myself, but I'll do it on this episode. If despite what the Bulls are going through as far as injuries and inconsistent play, if you want people to take you seriously, this is the time to show up, especially against better teams. There are a couple of teams in there that you should be able to beat still, but if you want to be taken seriously, you have to show up, especially against the better teams. They didn't do that against the Clippers. I know you don't want to freak out, Lakeena, but the teams that you are supposed to take care of, you better take care of them, and you got to show up against the better teams as well. The schedule, as we mentioned, between now and at the beginning of March before they take that All-Star break now, it's going to be challenging for the Bulls, but if you want to go to the next level, you have to take on all comers.
Well, and Charlotte's having COVID issues, so they might be able to win that game. And Indiana, they're sort of up and down, so we'll talk about it on Friday. But I'm interested to see how they do look against Indiana. Also to Charlotte now. Okay, Philly has had their struggles. They lost to the Wizards last night, so
yeah,
you might get them in not a very good mood. Sacramento, I mean, we'll see. It's a quick turnaround, so they got to come back to Chicago. They play in Philly, then they have to come back to Chicago. So I don't want to hear anybody if they look flat against Sacramento. I don't want to hear it because they came, they're coming back, back to back. I'm not freaking out about that. They have beaten Houston, so they are capable of beating Houston. Houston's sort of been sort of back up and down too. So if you can go at least 2 or 3 or 3-2 would be even better. I mean, that's a pretty good accomplishment if you're a Bulls fan. If you're a Bulls fan, you'll take that.
Yeah, you'll take that if you're the Chicago Bulls. Hopefully you can get at 500 or close to 500 by the All-Star break in early March. Lakeena, there's been talk around social media streets and the various outlets that Lauri Markkanen, who's currently out with another shoulder injury, he's a restricted free agent at the end of the season. Of course, the trade deadline, I believe, is on March 25th. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But there's been talk about should this new regime in Mark Eversley and AK, Arturas Knichevich, should they consider trading him for the right deal at the trade deadline? Me personally, I want them to see get something for Markkanen, but if he's not healthy, you're not going to get what you want for him. And I think this management is much smarter than Gar Pax ever was. So I think if it's the right deal, I think he'll go. But I'm not sure. If I had to put some money on it, if Lauri would be traded by the trade deadline, as of right now, I would say no.
Yeah, and you're right.
Because he has a problem to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's been the problem, and that's why you're going to see some teams a little leery about wanting to trade for him. And you're all right, Theo. It is Thursday the 25th at 2 o'clock our time. So March 25th, I should say. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if they see that there's a deal to be made, I'm sure they will pull the trigger. But right now, especially the fact that he can't stay healthy, they probably aren't going to trade him, at least not right now. Remember, he is restricted, so whatever offer he gets, the Bulls can match it if they want. So, but you know how some Chicago Bulls fans are. Let's give him something. Look, you're not gonna get. Because you know how some fans are. Let's give him for something. Like no. Yeah. Look, I trust AK and Mark Eversley.
We'll get a bag of basketballs. Here's some headbands for Larry. Just if we can get something for him. Yeah.
Some deep dish pizza, or some Portillo's. Like, come on, guys. Let's slow it down now. I'm hearing.
We'll give him some Harold's chicken too.
exactly. Or Eli's cheesecake. Let's get him on. Let's give him some Eli's cheesecake. Look, they're not going to pull the trigger unless this is going to be a good deal and they get equal value. They're not going to do that. I'm hearing people say, well, let's trade Levine. Like, no, he's like the best player you guys have. Your best bet is to probably try and build around him. So, look, I don't think they're going to do any trades unless there's something that really sort of, tickles their fancy. I just don't see them making any big trades. I don't.
We also know that Thaddeus Young, who's on this roster right now, who's done mildly fine coming off the bench this year. Of course, we all know last year he was expected to get moved, and that didn't happen. Do you expect him to get some offers again this year? Do you expect him to get moved?
He might. That might be the one guy that I would say that might get moved. Again,
I agree.
I'm sure he's going to want to go to the contender. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of contending teams, especially there one in Los Angeles. We'll talk about them in a second, but I think he's probably the one guy that I will say that would get traded because you can probably get something of value for him. Maybe get one contract, match contracts, maybe get a pick next year or a late second round pick next year, whatever. So he's probably like the one guy that I can say that if any of the Bulls do get traded, it'll probably be him.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we talk about the Chicago Bulls. Now let's transition over to the rest of the association, like, what games impressed you over the weekend? What stood out to you from the weekend action of the NBA?
A little, some of the top teams struggled a little bit. Boston lost to the Wizards last night. Yesterday, I mean.
I
But,
watched some of that on Sunday.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that's all you can do is laugh.
Yeah,
That's all they'll get from me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened there. Look, I mean, everybody, all the top teams will have a couple losses where you kind of scratch your head, like, what the heck what the heck was that? But again, Bradley Beal, 35 points. Russell coming back from injury, he had a double. So, I don't know if the Wizards will make a play for those last, those play-in spots. They're in last place right now in the East, but I guess for morale, I guess that's a good morale boost if you're a Wizards fan. I guess. The Detroit has looked pretty good too. I mean, they've won a couple in a row. I mean.
Yeah, they beat Boston, New Orleans.
Yeah, which is crazy. They beat New Orleans yesterday. They tamed Zion, which is hard to do. So was a little surprised by that score. The Portland-Dallas game last night, Sid, if you didn't get a chance to see it, it was crazy. Portland had a big lead. Dallas made a run, but Luka made a big shot, but then Dame made a big shot. They made some defensive stops. So
that's what he does.
That's what he does.
That's what he does.
If
anybody's surprised at this point and they claim to watch basketball, and you're surprised by that, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't watch basketball. So they've won 4 in a row. The Suns have won 6 in a row. They've looked good. They beat Orlando last night, I should say. So there are some things that impressed me. Of course, Utah's won 7 in a row. They're now the number 1 seed right now. Should the playoffs start today? So that's sort of thing for me. Some of the top West teams, are starting to kind of kick into gear. And some of the East teams, not so much. Okay, maybe Brooklyn and Indiana, they have a minor 2-game winning streak. But other than that, I mean, a lot of the East teams have been pretty disappointing this weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I want to focus in on the big-time Saturday night game. It was the Brooklyn Nets defeating the Golden State Warriors 134-117. Brooklyn scored 42 points in the third quarter to basically break that game open. Kevin Durant had 20 points for Brooklyn. James Harden had 19 points. Kyrie Irving led the team with 23. And I know there was a comments exchange between Harden and Irving at the end of talking about, Kyrie, you the point guard of the team. Let's see if we can work this out, coming from Harden, paraphrasing, of course. Yeah. You can see the Brooklyn Nets are a good team when all 3 of those guys are working together now. As of this broadcast, Kevin Durant will miss the next 2 games due to an injury. So for Brooklyn, it's all about getting healthy at this point. You want that chemistry to develop, but if your main stars keep getting hurt, it's going to be a setback for you. They're 4 games over 500 as we speak at 16-12. Well, you'll think they'll start to gel a little bit, but you have a minor setback with this injury for Durant. So he'll be out for at least the next couple of games. So hopefully Brooklyn won't have too much in terms of injuries to overcome. As we talked about it before, Lakeena, their number 1 problem is defense. And I want to bring this name up again, Lakeena, now with Andre Drummond being told not to play for the Cleveland Cavaliers until something happens around that trade deadline a little bit over a month from now. If you're Brooklyn, assuming that Andre Drummond is bought out, you're going to do any and everything within your power to get him to come to your team, because right now, defense is your number 1 issue for you, the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I saw that early this morning, and look, there's going to be about a half dozen teams that are going to be vying for his services. So
yes.
So once he does get bought out, with the Cavs, I think there's going to be a whole lot of teams, playoff contending teams that are going to want him, depending on their cap space and whatnot. So it's not going to be Brooklyn. There's going to be a line for him. So. Yes. I know Brooklyn, they're going to try very hard, but there's going to be a lot of teams, especially out west, they're going to be vying for his services.
Yeah, speaking of teams out west, Lakeena, the Los Angeles Lakers split their games over the weekend. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday. Of course, they lost to Denver on the road on Sunday. Of course, Anthony Davis injures Achilles again. And he's going to be out. I was surprised that he played on Sunday. I thought that the Lakers would take it easy on him, let him rest up until he's completely healthy. At least, you have to be careful with him. Let's be honest here. They had the shortest offseason in league history. I know that you're the defending world champs, but this regular season is not as important as it was last year. Now, you can rest up Davis. You're forced to do that now. Hopefully the injury is not as serious as some people are speculating, but you could just rest him up, take your time with him, and let him get some games in between now and the middle of May when the regular season is over, so you can get yourself ready for the playoffs. That's what the season is about for the Lakers. As I mentioned on our last episode, you're going to have some key players now that are going to have to step in and step up for the Lakers, like Caruso when he gets back, Kyle Kuzma, who had a big tip and dunk on Sunday. Role players like that will have to get some extra time. Wes Matthews as well. I know he hasn't fit into the rotation up to this point for the gold, wine and gold, but the role player is going to have to show up, and you really have to worry about this next phase as well. LeBron James playing close to 40 minutes per night. Now that we know that Anthony Davis is going to be out for a while, we presume. How much load can LeBron James take? Because you really thought that with all systems ago, everything would have, if your players would have stayed healthy, he was going to play at least 30 minutes a night. That's not going to be the case now, at least not for the short term.
Yeah, I think that the Lakers role players need to step up, especially since I'm sure. Look, if it's only a sprain and he misses like 4 to 6 weeks, he's not available after the All-Star break. Fine. That's fine. Now, even if it's a partial tear, he misses 2 to 3 months. Okay, fine. Get him healthy to get that stretch run to the playoffs. Now, I'm not going to go into the other scenarios because it gets worse after that. So, if you're a Lakers fan, if you're the Lakers, you better be hoping for the first 2 scenarios. If nothing is torn, you pray your lucky stars and just sit him for the 6 weeks and then just hope they can get him back in game shape, because the regular season is not that important. I know LeBron's been playing, 40 minutes, but he's 36. He's not going to want to do it for the second half of the season. He's not. So the role players, will have to step up. And there's another thing that's being floated around. Perhaps maybe someone's going to be vying for their services. Adrian Wojnarowski just tweeted that Blake Griffin and the Pistons are agreeing that he'll be out of the lineup until the franchise and his reps can work through a resolution on his playing future. So he might be, so he might be going through the same situation as Drummond. And if he gets bought out, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of contending teams that are going to be vying for his services too. And if you're the Lakers, I think that might be somebody that you might want to think about looking at. I'm just saying.
Yeah, are they up? Obviously, you won't have to sign Blake Griffin for that much, but still, aren't the Lakers up against it? Against the salary cap, I should say.
They might be near or up against it, so they may have to move some guys around. But I think, look, especially if AD's going to be out for a while, and LeBron, it's going to want to sit for a few games in between. You're going to need somebody to pick up. You got to think that maybe if you have to pick a 2, maybe Andre Drummond probably wouldn't cost you that much. Neither him or Griffin would cost you a lot, but you got to think Drummond might be I don't want to demean him like the cheapest of the 2. Yeah. So I don't want to demean him in any way because he's very accomplished. But I think. Look, I think that there might be guys you want to look at. If you're the Lakers, I'm just saying you may have to move some guys around, but I'm sure LeBron's gonna want to win another championship, and look, you're gonna try and do all types of things.
Yeah, without Anthony Davis, the Lakers do not win a title, period, because you don't have that second star to fill in the shoes of Anthony Davis. That is the bottom line. We've seen LeBron James, especially during his younger days in his career. And we saw that here in Chicago, Lakeena, growing up watching the great Michael Jordan. You have to have a team around them to win a championship. You need 2 or 3 stars in the NBA. It's always been that way. It will always be that way in terms of winning a championship, formula of winning. Now, Blake Griffin, the problem with him is he hasn't stayed healthy over the last few years, especially being in a Pistons uniform. I know he made the All-Star game back in 2019, I believe, for representing the Pistons. But outside of that, ever since he was traded from the Clippers, it's been a struggle for him. So he would be a good fit for the Lakers. And if he could stay healthy, assuming that the Lakers pick him up, if that's an option for him, there won't be a bad signing. But We'll see. We'll see what happens. The Lakers could have some options if AD is out for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good thing if you're Lakers. That's probably what you
Mm-hmm.
want, no doubt. So over the next week until we convene on Friday, I should say, Sid, what games are you keeping your eye on?
Looking through the calendar of these NBA games that's coming up this week, let's focus in on the games on Tuesday. Just a couple that stands out to me at 6 o'clock. This is for Tuesday now, the 16th of February. The Nuggets will take on the Celtics. Can the Nuggets keep their momentum going with the after the victory over the Lakers on Sunday? Can Boston bounce back with the embarrassing loss in our nation's capital? Well, we shall see. At 7 o'clock, you have Toronto at Milwaukee. The Raptors were upset by the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday. The Bucks have lost 2 games in a row on their West Coast road trip at OKC and then at Utah this past Friday. So we'll see if Milwaukee can get back on track. And then at 9 o'clock, this is the game I'm looking forward to on TNT. This is for Tuesday. The Brooklyn Nets at the Phoenix Suns. As you mentioned, the Suns are on the current 6-game winning streak. They had a big win against Philadelphia on Saturday afternoon. For Brooklyn, as I mentioned before, they had a big win at Golden State in front of a national audience on Saturday night. There's going to be 2 teams that can get up and down the floor.
First to 150 wins, I'm thinking. That's going to be correct.
As Jason Goff would say, the NBA 80s on coke.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, pretty much. What else you got for this week?
Okay, for the games on Wednesday, Atlanta at Boston at 6:30.
That should be
of course, the first game on ESPN for Wednesday is Houston at Philadelphia. Let's see if Philadelphia can get back on track and keep that lead within the Eastern Conference. And of course, at 8 o'clock is Portland at New Orleans. Zion versus Dame Dollar, as the kids will call them. And then, of course, the second game of the Wednesday night doubleheader on ESPN will be Miami at Golden State. But another good one that people should pay attention to going on at the same time on Wednesday is Utah at the Clippers. That's going to be a fun one. I'm definitely looking forward to watching that game live via my computer.
I'm about to say I'm gonna be watching that game via my laptop because I'm looking forward to that one. And that should be a lot of fun. I mean, we'll see if the Clippers can snap the Jazz's current win streak, which is at 7. So that should be a fun one there. And also a special note too, not to bring COVID into it, but Tuesday's game between San Antonio and Detroit has been postponed because apparently there's a positive test in the Spurs organization. So now, so they actually are supposed to have a game after that. So we'll be interested to see if they, how long will they have to maybe pause, if you will, because they have another game against Cleveland that next night. So that's going to be interesting to see if that gets postponed. Okay.
Yeah, quietly the Spurs are on the road. They beat the Charlotte Hornets on the road on Sunday, and they're now 5 games over 500 at 16-11. No one's talking about them.
But I think that's how Pop likes it. Pop likes it that way. I think he likes it.
That's true.
Thursday, the TNT doubleheader, a couple of good ones. You got Toronto and Milwaukee. And also Brooklyn and the Lakers, I'm sure AD will be out for that game. But those are 2 really good, that's a really good doubleheader. Also, too, the Miami-Sacramento game is pretty intriguing, too. So a pretty good slate on Thursday.
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to those games. Now, the late game, as far as TNT is concerned for Thursday, the Nets and the Lakers, yes, it's going to stink that Anthony Davis probably will not play. But this should be still a nice preview for the NBA Finals between these 2 teams. Now, will it be the final rosters? Should they meet in late June, early July? We don't know, but it still should be fun on Thursday. I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Also, to Friday, of course, we talked about the Bulls and the Sixers, Atlanta and Boston, that they meet once again, less than a week. OKC and Milwaukee, that could be intriguing. Phoenix and New Orleans, that should be another one. Devin Booker versus Zion, that should be a fun one too. Battle of Texas, Dallas and Houston, that should be a good one. Toronto and Minnesota, like you said, they've actually been playing pretty well lately. I'm happy for Karl Anthony Towns and also the rest of that staff, and so that those are some of the games that also to Utah and the Clippers again. That should be a good one. That'll be another good one. The way they're doing this is that in some games you're going to be, some teams are going to be playing back to back again, because of COVID to limit the travel.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are wondering, like, wait, did we say that already? that's just how the schedule is in some instances. So I know people are kind of like, wait, are we repeating ourselves? No, that's just how the schedule is. Because you know how some people are. So like, wait a minute, or didn't they just talk about those two teams playing each other? So you know how they are.
They cut down on the risk because of travel, folks. So that's how these leagues are doing it this year across all sports. So don't call us crazy. We just give you the information.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the college hardwood now, Sid. Let's start with Loyola. Loyola's still ranked in the top 25, even though they lost the second game of their double header, if you will, with Drake. No love lost between those two teams. But look, Creighton Kelrick had 11 points. He had a double, 14 rebounds. Andre Ugwatz. I can't say this guy's name, so for the life of me,
you said it better than I did. So
I know Aha Ugwat. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry. His family, if you're listening to this, but he had 11 points. He actually led the team in their first game when Loyola won. Beat Drake pre-handed. Now remember, Drake doesn't have the leading scorer, Shaquan Hemphill, who leads them in both points and rebounds. So unfortunately, you saw a little bit of that, but the Drake got a nice little win for them, to kind of boost their morale. We'll see what they do. I know some people are saying that both teams should get into the tournament, but you can't afford any bad losses. You can't afford any bad losses, especially this late in the season. And I think both teams, I don't know how you feel, Sid, but I think both teams have to get into the Missouri Valley Conference tourney final, or for them to both have a chance. Of course, you want to get the automatic bid, but if you're the Missouri Valley, you want both those teams to get into the finals. So that way, maybe they'll have a better chance of getting both of them in. But
I think they have a great chance for both squads to get in. Of course, as I expected, looking, we previewed the contest on Friday. I expected a split. Now, Loyola, they made some key mistakes down the stretch, especially in regulation. Then again, in overtime, watched both those games over the weekend. Now, during the Saturday game, they turned up the intensity in the second half, and you can see they were much focused. They're more aggressive than Drake, and so they came out of there with a 27-point win. Now, Sunday's game, not so much. They were leading by 10, but they just couldn't close the deal. Like you mentioned before, you cannot afford to have losses like that at this time of year. I think Porter Moser, the head coach of Loyola, he's going to use this loss as a wake-up call. If you play like that, we're not going to go anywhere, let alone the NCAA tournament. So those young men are too talented, and they're a very good team. They're ranked number 22 going to the weekend for a reason. So I don't think this is going to derail them. I think that Coach Moser is going to use this as a motivator. So I'm not too worried about Loyola. Like you say, they should finish the season strong. I know they have a game on Wednesday. I don't have the schedule in front of me as of yet, but they have a game on Wednesday, and then they'll wrap up the season within the next week or so before getting ready for the conference tournament down in St. Louis. So they should finish the regular season strong. So I'm not too worried about this team. Like I said, just use Sunday's loss as a motivator, because they could have walked out of there with 2 wins in a row, especially Sunday's game where you didn't finish the deal. You were up 10 midway through that second half. You should have closed the deal. Unlike on Saturday, which you did. Sunday's game was not the greatest showing as far as the way it ended if you're the Ramblers, but you'll be happy taking a split.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. We'll see how both teams finish up in that conference, because they'll go. I think they're going to be like one of the first conferences to start their tournaments. I don't know how the format's going to be. I know some conferences are going to be doing conference tournaments. I'll just send like whoever wins the tournament. Wins the conference, I should say. So we'll see what they do there. Locally, Michigan got a nice win after a 23-day layoff, against Wisconsin. Yes, I actually watched some of that game, and I thought, look, this is how you expect it. They of course they struggle for a little bit. They haven't played in over 3 weeks, so I don't know why. I don't know why folks were kind of surprised, but look, they kicked it into gear. They made some big shots late, so. Look, I think Michigan is showing you that they might get that other number 1 seed. I was very impressed. Isaiah Livers had 20 points. Franz Wagner, who, if you remember, his brother Mo played there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Was a big, proven, he had 14 big points, made some key blocks late to keep Wisconsin from catching up. So if Michigan can kind of finish up the season, they can win the regular season title and perhaps get that one of those number one seeds.
Yeah, shout out to Juwan Howard. Like we talked about it on Friday, how will they start off the game? Like you said, that layoff didn't hurt them too bad. It took them a little bit of time, but not that much. So they dominated Wisconsin the rest of the way, especially in that second half. Let's talk about the Fighting Illini, which is another team that Michigan will have to contend with. Unfortunately, their meeting has been postponed from last week due to COVID. Will they make that up before the Big Ten tournament? We don't know. But regardless, Illinois got a big win on Friday. It had to take overtime to get it done, but they defeated the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road, 77-72. Ayo Dosunmu, or as I call him, L on this show, he scored 31 points with 3 rebounds and 6 assists. Teddy Allen led Nebraska with 15 points and 6 rebounds. Lakeena, is it fatigue because of the regular season ending for Illinois, or do you have to actually give Nebraska credit for battling a top-tier team?
It could be both. I mean, you get Nebraska credit. I mean, Nebraska, they've had their issues, due to COVID and other things. So I actually didn't think it was going to be that close. That's why I didn't watch it. So I was just going by our good friend Shannon Wright, who does a great job covering college football and hoops for the Tribune, for the show as well. So, but when she said, "Oh, okay, they're going to overtime," I'm like, "Oh, okay." But look, I said, "Io," as I call him, Io, did his thing, had a double. So, I mean, look, I mean, I'm sure Brian Underwood will use as motivation too. They still got to. I don't know when they're going to play Michigan. I'm sure they will make that game up at some point, in the next few weeks before they start the conference tournament. But look, Illinois showing the competitive and they're showing the fight, but that just showed you. But it also showed you how big and deep the Big Ten is.
Yes, as we mentioned before, they could get about 6, 7, maybe 8 teams. I don't know, I might be stretching to 8, but definitely about 6 or 7 teams they can get into the March Madness tournament. So we shall see. Illinois will have another game coming up on Tuesday against Northwestern. Hopefully they don't sleepwalk through that one.
Another good one here. Creighton just hammered Villanova. I was a little surprised that they beat them the way they did, because this Creighton team is very weird. They lost to Georgetown about a month ago, so the fact that they were able to beat Villanova the way they did. I mean, they hit their three. So this is one of those teams that if you know the Creighton program, they depend on the three a lot. So that's they were hitting their threes. So and Villanova will have a chance to have their revenge. They play again on March 3rd in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure Jay Wright will have his guys ready for that game. Arkansas, Eric Musselman, they had a big upset against Missouri, freshened up that tourney resume for them. OU's, climbing up in that board, making the case for one of those top seeds. Texas, beat TCU. Let's see what else. Houston with a nice win there too. So on yesterday. So I think that look, this is the time of year where people are trying to shore up their resumes and make the case for the number one seed. Ohio State's sort of saying, hey, we might be another Big Ten team that gets that one of those one seeds. So we'll see. I mean, these next few weeks are going to be very big for if you're a college hoops fan.
Yes, it will be. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. So we talk about college basketball. Lakeena, what big games you will be keeping your eye on for this week?
Well, there's one tonight. Of course, we can't talk about it because this will be posted. But Virginia and Florida State, that could be for the ACC. That should be a fun one there down in Tallahassee. 2 totally different teams, so that should be a fun one there. Tomorrow you got Florida and Arkansas.
Tuesday.
Yep. Florida, Arkansas, that should be a fun one there because I'm looking forward to that one. Texas and OU, you always love when those 2 teams play each other no matter what the sport. That should be a fun one. Oh yeah, look, that rival rivalry goes beyond football. Let's remember that one. Also Utah State and Boise State. These are 2 teams from the Mountain West who are both going to be vying to be on the bubble in the tournaments, especially with the Ivy League not participating in the tournament this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be leave the door open for teams like Utah State and Boise State. These are the top two of the top three teams, I think, in the Mountain West. That should be a fun one there. If Arizona State, USC, if you're USC, you want to try to freshen up that tourney resume and improve your seeding. What's another good one? LSU and Ole Miss. If you're Ole Miss, you're trying to freshen up your tourney resume. Yeah, they got a nice win there. Have a couple of nice wins lately, so that should be a fun one. Texas Tech and TCU on Thursday. Also, too, Iowa and Wisconsin. That should be a good one there in the
Yes,
Big
I'm looking
Ten.
forward to that one. Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. What's another one? Basically, this is listen. A lot of these other games are just sort of vying for spots. Rutgers and Michigan. That should be a good one there in the Big Ten. Arizona, UCLA. Always a good one there in the Pac-12. So some really good matchups, some key matchups in both the Power 5 and non-Power 5.
Yeah, so it should be exciting. As I mentioned, the Loyola Ramblers focusing back locally, they'll have a game on Wednesday against Valparaiso on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It's at the Gentile Center. Some of the things that the snow will be gone by then. I'm assuming that they will. So they'll play there on Wednesday. Of course, the Illini have a game on Tuesday against Northwestern. Of course, I have a game on Saturday against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So as you mentioned, Lakeena, is the home stretch for college basketball, both nationally and locally. So it's going to be fun.
Also, to San Diego State. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry, Sid.
No, go ahead and wrap it up.
Well, no, I was like San Diego State, a team from the Mountain West, they'll probably end up getting it. They'll probably get a bid regardless. So they're now back in the top 25. They've been, they kind of rebuilding the last couple of years. So now they're back and, they got a couple of big games this week, I should say. So, if you're Aztec fans, I'm sure you're happy to see your Aztecs back in the top 25. And also Kansas too. Looks like
Kansas is back in the top 25.
Well, we figured that they wouldn't be gone from there long, so.
Right. Even though this has not been their year, they're too talented not to stay out of the top 25. So we'll see what goes on with the Jayhawks from here on out. Before we get out of here quick, Lakeena, we have just about a couple of minutes left. The Chicago Blackhawks, let's show some love to them as they start a tough 6-game road trip. Of course, when this episode is released, the first game against the Detroit Dead Wings will have already been played, but they play another game at Detroit on Wednesday. Of course, as of this recording, the Hawks are 7-5-4 with 18 points. They're right in the middle of the pack in that new Central Division for this season. Of course, their last game that we have to review was against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Thursday night game, it was terrible, giving up 4 third-period goals to Columbus. One of the worst losses, in my opinion, of the season outside of opening night. But, of course, they come back on Saturday night with a late third-period goal to tie the game. Of course, Alex DeBrincat ends it in overtime with his 8th goal of the year. Now leads the team in goals with 8. Patrick King with another assist. He leads the team in assists with 15 and points overall with 22. Lakeena, I told you that this team was not going to be as bad as you thought or many people thought. We just didn't know. But we have a goalie in Lankinen. The Brinket has rebounded from his COVID issues. He's picked up where he's left off. You have to feel good for the Hawks, but as I mentioned, you have a tough 6-game road trip now. So these are the teams that you're supposed to be. As I mentioned, you have a 2-game series at Detroit. Of course, after Wednesday's game, you go to Carolina for games on Friday and Saturday back-to-back. And then you go to Columbus next week, next Tuesday and Thursday. So it's going to be tough, but if you could come out of there with a 500 record, Lakeena, and pick up at least a point, if not in every game, at least 4 out of those 6 games, I would prefer 5 out of 6. But if you can pick up points in 4 or 5 out of those 6 games, you're doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, like we've been saying, it looks like the guys are buying into Jeremy Colleton. I know some fans are not too keen on him, but it's obvious that they're listening to him. Well, come on, Sid, But yeah, look,
it's true. It's true.
And also, too, Kaner's Kaner. So I think as long as you got Patrick Kane on your team, I think you'll have a shot every game pretty much. So that's why I'm a little, I'm a little more mellow now in my expectations for the Blackhawks. Will they make the playoffs? Look, it's probably going to be, chances are they probably won't. But if they can get to at least 500 or finish right at 500, I think you got to be pretty encouraged.
Yeah, it's all about growth for this team, as I mentioned before, coming to this season. And you'd like to see some improvement from some of your key guys. Of course, you have P.S. Suter, who's been having an outstanding year for the Hawks. He's playing on that first line with Patrick Kane, and he's leading the NHL rookies in points right now, I believe, with 9. So you like to see more from him. As I mentioned, you have Kevin Lankin as your goaltender. The Hawks looks like they found another one out of the dumpster fire. No one's wanted him to bring him in, and he's doing the job so far. So you know as well as I do, Lakeena, if you get into the playoffs and you have a hot goaltender, a good goaltender will take you a long way.
Yeah, and I saw some of the things people were saying about him, basically saying, "Oh, why is he still in the league?" But I'm glad. Well, I'm happy for him. And look, he's still 25. He's still young, so he's probably just learning the NHL ropes and stuff like that. He's been really good, and I think he's been another key to the Hawks, having the start that they have. So I'm happy for him. And look, I think they found their goalie, like you said. So I think there was a lot of people were sort of freaking out that they weren't going to find anybody. It looks like they found him. So.
Yeah, the two quick keys, real quick, as far as any team they can win consistently in the NHL. You have to have great goaltending, great special teams, and you have to play well defensively. And the Hawks are doing that in all 3 phases right now.
Absolutely. So look, I think if you're a Hawks fan, you should be really encouraged by the start. So because I'm sure a lot of people.
I'm not saying playoffs yet. Let's give it another few weeks before we go knocking on that door. So, as I mentioned, let's get through this road trip first, and then maybe you'll start to judge. I know we're barely a month into the season now, so you pretty much get a decent barometer. But I'll give my grade after this current road trip, which ends in the next week and a half or so.
Yeah, temper their expectations, guys. Let's not. Look, they're playing confident and they're competent. So that's all you can ask for right now if you're a Hawks.
Yeah, imagine if they had Jonathan Taves and Kirby Dach and Alex Nylander.
Yeah, just imagine. So the fact that they've been able to do as well as they have.
And Andrew Shaw as well, who's out with a concussion.
Yeah, so the fact that they're actually playing pretty well, despite those injuries, you gotta be feeling. You gotta be feeling pretty good if you're a Blackhawks fan right now. Still over on the East Coast, still some teams are still having issues. So Jersey and Boston, that's been postponed due to COVID. It looks like they're starting to kind of get back into it. Philly's supposed to be back in action this week I should say. So they're slowly starting to kind of get back on track with despite the COVID issues.
And plus, the NHL is supposed to have 2 games outdoors in Lake Tahoe this upcoming weekend. We'll get into it a little bit more on Friday, but hopefully nothing happens between those 4 teams that are going to participate, and those games can get off without a hitch. So we'll get into that a little bit more on Friday.
Yes, we will. Those Tahoe games should be a lot of fun. A couple of quick notes before we get out of here. Gus Malzahn is the new head football coach over at UCF. So, probably, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to win there right away, because UCF has been kind of like in the sort of on, right there, but, they had guys defect due to COVID and they had other issues. The coaches, Josh Heupel leaves for Tennessee. So now that job, got open, and now Gus Malzahn is the new head coach of the Knights. And also, too, Michael McDowell, congrats to him. He picks the Daytona 500 to win his first ever Cup race. So in the Cup. So this is the second year in the Cup circuit. So nice win for him.
I know they had a long delay before I went to bed last night, between 10 and 11 our time. The race was still going.
Yep, and they actually had to crash in the final lap, and McDowell only led like that half lap, but that's all. Look, I always told my mom earlier that's all it takes. So as long as the important lap.
Yeah.
All right. Also, too, on the Aussie Open front, some tennis going on down there in Australia. If you're ESPN, you're hoping for a Osaka Serena women's final and a Djokovic Nadal men's final. You're cheering for that if you're the ESPN.
Yeah, hopefully you don't see Serena yelling at an official anymore.
Yeah. Oh gosh, God, I hope not. But I hope not. So let's hope not. We've had enough of John McRose for a lifetime. So, well,
Jimmy Connors too.
and
Well,
Jimmy
he had a
Cutler.
mouth that's just like a
Oh
sailor.
yes.
Woo.
Oh yes. He'll be the first to admit that too. So he'll.
Yeah. On that note.
On that note, you follow me at Keenan McGee. Oh, real quick, say before we go, what are you looking forward to this week?
Uh, just the games that we mentioned in the NBA, especially the Lakers and Nets game on Thursday. Probably without Anthony Davis, but that still should be fun. Looking forward to the final Illini game in college basketball on Tuesday. Can they build off that tough win at Nebraska from Friday? Hopefully, this will not be a letdown game against Northwestern. Of course, Loyola coach Porter Moser, after giving that game away on Sunday, can they rebound that home against Valparaiso?
Yeah, should. Yeah, that'll be interesting too. Also, all the games you mentioned, and also too, the tonight's game between Virginia and Florida State. Looking forward to that one. Also, a couple other, NBA basketball games. Also, too, a couple NHL games. The games Lake Tahoe. I'm gonna be checking those out too. So a busy week. So if the snow is a little bit, and the cold is freaking you out, I know it's freaking out. Our friends down in Texas, they're not used to that. I mean, my goodness, but you get to enjoy a little bit of sports to kind of keep yourselves warm and not go crazy. On that note, you follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more information on articles, podcasts, culture, and everything else. That's www.weareregalradio.com. Also, you can listen to this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming for War Media by simply searching for War on Anger Review. Download your podcast on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in the search engine box War on Anger. That's WARR space on space anger. Just like that. Just type it in. No problem. Also, we're on the tube, aka YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. And thank you for your support in advance. Mwah.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. So for
Yes.
Sid, I'm Lakeena. Stay safe out there. Don't slip. Also, too, keep your hands clean. Keep your distance and wear your mask. Enjoy the games, everybody. This is Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you on Friday.
Till next time, holla!